Welcome, everybody. This is Statsational for the Sharp app, and you are about to see my NFL power rankings going into the week 6 of the season. Hard to believe we're already up to week 6. We've got buys starting this week, so the season is getting really close to that halfway point. But this is the point where we really start looking at statistics, and a lot of times our eyes disagree with what the statistics show. And sometimes our eyes are right, sometimes the numbers are right. But I like to look at the numbers and maybe then reevaluate what it is my eyes are seeing. So let's talk about the first one. I'm going to be going over the top 10 teams each and every week. And then below, inside the app, in the article, you'll be able to see what all the power ratings are and rankings. And by the way, the power rating, if you've ever heard the term power rating or power ranking is just the numbers. That's just the analysis, the data accumulated and baked into the model. And then the ranking is just simply ranking those ratings. So if I mix those two terms up, I probably will. Try not to hold it against me. Let's just get into who's missing from the top 10 first. I know each and every week I want to go over the top 10, but who's missing that probably is a top 10 team? I'm sure they're top 10 on everyone's power rankings. Now, by the way, when you watch, I don't watch a lot of these shows like ESPN or Fox or whoever's doing these power rankings. You've probably seen some online ones as well. That's generally just one person or a group of people picking who they think is the best team at this time and then adjusting it. That would be really that eye test. This is simply based on the numbers. It's almost like the college football, the computer that was used in college football, right? The bigger the margin of victory, more yardage, things like that, it's going to play well in the system. Now, let me also tell you this. Turnovers are not factored in. Now, in the future, I might, and I've been contemplating this, on adding in interceptions because I think interceptions are less fluky than fumbles. I think fumbles, for the most part, tend to be luck-based. Whether you recover, you could fumble quite often and then recover a lot of those. It tends to get a little bit lucky which way the ball's bouncing. Obviously, if you keep laying the ball on the ground often enough, you're going to have more fumbles. But the interceptions do tend to be more skill-based or lack of skill. So I may be adding interceptions into this, but you will see. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago with Tampa, they were a much better team on these rankings than they actually were in real life because Winston threw so many interceptions in key moments. So that doesn't get factored in. Also, penalties don't get factored in here, which I think tend to be a little random. Obviously, some teams are going to be more penalized than others, but we don't factor that in. So we're really looking at yardage, points, things like that inside of this model. So is it perfect? Is it highly predictable? No. If you know anything about statistics, there's something called R squared, which tends to show you just how correlated your statistic is in giving you the desired outcome. So I guess that's a way of saying you take my power ranking or you take my power rating and then you plug it into a linear regression model and it's predictive somewhere around 35 to 40%, which is not terrible, but obviously it's not highly predictive. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to predict the outcome of games solely using this model. You'd have to add a lot of other things into it. I have a whole video on linear regression in the Sharp Academy series. You can find that over at the Sharp app. But let's get into what we're talking about here now. The team missing is Green Bay. They're not in my top 10. I just want to go over them really quickly because why are they not in the top 10? That week 1 performance in New Orleans has absolutely killed them in the rankings. 38-3 loss. They could not move the ball. The offense looked terrible. Defense obviously looked terrible. And then what's making matters worse, this looks at how the teams you played have played other teams. And New Orleans has not been all that great. I mean, they're 3-2, but they haven't looked like world beaters. If New Orleans was the best team in the league right now, 5-0, that would bring Green Bay up to the top. Now, this is what I talk about when I say a lot of people out there probably have Green Bay somewhere, maybe if not in their top 5, certainly in their top 10. We're going to have them at 16th. Now, do I think they're the 16th best team? No, they're better than that. They probably should be in the top 10, but it's something to keep an eye on where the numbers aren't always wrong and your eye isn't always right, vice versa. So keep an eye on Green Bay. They are middle of the pack. Also, just a note on these. Last year, I believe every team outside of Cleveland that made the playoffs were almost in the order that they appeared on the rankings. Now, Cleveland was way down below, was way down out of it. I forget exactly where they ranked last year, but that's because they actually had a negative scoring margin against them on the year. Had a bit of a fluky season. That's why I took Cleveland on the under in futures this year. Now, we'll get to Cleveland in a minute because they did crack the top 10, but let's bring up the top 10 right now. We'll start with the 10 team, and that was the team that played on Monday night. Another unbelievable game. Baltimore is now 4-1. Why are they 10th? I'm sure a lot of people have them higher, especially Lamar looking as good as he did on Monday night. But they're 10th because of the way that they've won these games. These games have been close. They easily could have 2 more losses. The statistics show that they have not dominated teams, so that's not helping their cause. The 9th team, the Rams, this is a team that a lot of people had number 1 maybe 2 weeks ago. When they beat Tampa, people were writing their ticket to the Super Bowl. That was it. They were the best team in the NFC. It only took 1 week for them to get sobered up and get knocked down, knocked in the teeth when Arizona came in there and really did a number on them. So the Rams are in the 9th spot, still 4-1. They only have that 1 loss. They beat Tampa. Again, that looked like a pretty good win at the time. Tampa, we know, is going to be a pretty good team. But the loss to Arizona certainly hurts. Long way to go, though. The Rams get the Giants this week. Now, they're going to be an 11-point favorite on the road against the Giants. That's a game where if they can run the score up, win big, we'll see them move up. If they play that game tight, they may actually move down in the rankings. Cleveland, I talked about them earlier. They actually come up on as 8th. Cleveland's just a team I can't figure out. Like I said, last year, they do really well, get to the playoffs. I've got them rated way down. I don't even think they were 15th or 16th on the ratings. They were sort of an anomaly last year. This year, they're 2-3, yet they're in 8th on the rankings right now. This will start to change, obviously, as the season goes. But Cleveland, the 8th team, they played a phenomenal game. Maybe defensively they didn't play so phenomenally, but the game itself was unbelievable to watch on Sunday. If you did not catch the end of that game, we actually bet Cleveland. I have not bet Cleveland all that often in the last couple of years. The one time I take them, they pretty much have that game at plus 2.5. That game is a lock. They're going to give up a field goal there late to the Chargers and lose the game by 2. They're up 1. And if you saw the last play of the game, it's one of the worst beats of all time. Eckler, right before that, catches a pass, goes down on about the 2-yard line, gets the first down, intentionally goes down so that they could run the clock, kick the field goal, win the game. For an inexplicable reason, they go ahead and run the ball on first down. Eckler obviously doesn't want to try and score. Cleveland grabs him and actually throws him into the end zone, something you'll maybe never see again. Just a really odd way to lose a bet. And, of course, Baker Mayfield can't take him down and win the game. They missed the 2-point conversion there. Baker had a shot, of course, to take him down the field. He couldn't do it, and that bet lost. So tough one. Cleveland has just been a thorn in my side here for the last couple of years. Kansas City comes in 7th. Now, we expected this team to be 1 or 2, and they still may be when the season's over, but I don't like what I'm seeing, and it's hard to really figure out what it is. Now, we know the defense is atrocious. Kansas City's 26th ranked on my defensive rankings this year. Now, offensively, obviously a totally different story. They are the number 2 offense behind the Cowboys. This defense looks really bad, but the offense did not look that good on Sunday when they played the Bills. The Bills just ran them right out of their own building. Now, our team's starting to figure out how to play Kansas City. I don't know about that. I think Mahomes is just too good of a talent to really be able to keep him down week in, week out. And it really has not been the offense's fault. As I said, number 2 offense in the league right now, according to my rankings. But that defense, really, something needs to change defensively. I've said this before on the podcast with the Geek. It is very hard for a defense to perform well when you have a prolific offense because the offense is constantly throwing the ball, moving the ball down the field, and not taking up a lot of time. Your defense gets on the field. They stay on the field quite a bit, and they do give up more points. I always go back to what really alerted me to this years ago when Alex Smith was the quarterback of San Francisco. They had the best defense in the league when I was running these numbers. That changed dramatically when Kaepernick took over. Kaepernick, I believe, gave them an additional 6 points per game, something like that. But they were giving up an additional 8 or 9 points per game. Kansas City at the 7 spot. Obviously, a long way to go in the season. They can turn this around. 7, a lot of teams wouldn't mind being 7. But at 2 and 3, they're still in my top 10. When you've got a team like Green Bay at 16, they're 4 and 1. You've got other teams like New Orleans is 3 and 2 that are in 13th on the rankings. But you've got Kansas City at 2 and 3, and this is not, you're going to have people with the eyeball test maybe putting them higher. I don't know. I haven't looked at any of those. But because the offense is so good, that's where they're rating so high. They've actually been outscored this year. So they have a negative 1.8 scoring margin per game. Crazy to think about that right now with Kansas City. Now, next up, Carolina. They are 6th on the list. 29.69 is the rating. Carolina's been doing it all with defense. Now, they're 3 and 2. They have not played the toughest of schedules. When they had to play a tough team in Dallas, they lost. Now, they played Philly last week. We had that one as a bet. Had a feeling that Philly might give them some problems. I think Carolina is a team that's going to linger, not in the top 10, maybe just outside the top 10. We shall see. But when you have the best defense or one of the best defenses, right now they're the number 2 defense behind Buffalo, which is crazy, and we'll get to Buffalo obviously ahead. But Carolina playing really strong defense. I don't know if I have the confidence that Darnold is going to give them enough offense. Of course, you lose Christian McCaffrey. We'll see when he gets back with that hamstring injury. But they're not quite the offensive team without McCaffrey. And Darnold is not terrible, but I don't know if he's a guy who's going to be able to get them, let's say, up into one of the top 5 teams. But certainly a potential playoff team with Carolina. When we get to 5, we're talking about the Chargers now. Now, when you talk about great young quarterbacks, this kid looks like one. Herbert obviously has played extremely well. He's kind of got Kansas City's number. They looked tremendous in the game with Kansas City. They're 4 and 1. They come in the 5th spot, and they played a really tough schedule. One thing I didn't mention about Kansas City is Kansas City has played the hardest schedule according to my rankings, and the Chargers are not that far away from that. So the Chargers have played some tough teams. They played Dallas. They played Kansas City. Some tough matchups, and they're 4 and 1. So look for the Chargers. I think this is a team that's really going to be a team to contend with as the season goes on. Where do they rank defensively? They are, let's see, I believe 6th. They are 6th in defense. They're 9th offensively. And what they're really doing well is obviously passing the ball, and they use the running backs well, obviously, in the passing game with Eckler, but stopping the pass. They're one of the best teams in the league right now against the pass. They did a great job against Dallas. We know how good that offense is with the pass. So let's see where they rank. I have them defensively against the pass. I've got them as the 4th best team defensively against the pass. So this is going to be a tough team. The AFC looks super strong, and especially that AFC West. We'll see. I think it's going to come down to Chargers and Kansas City. Should be a really interesting battle all season long with those 2 teams. Now, we get to the 4th team, Tampa Bay, the defending champions. 4 and 1. I know they didn't look great on that Sunday night game. I don't really give the credit all that much to Belichick. I think the weather, if you just saw the way Brady was throwing the ball, as soon as it dried up a little bit, he was back on target. The wet ball did not look good in that game. The opening day, we've seen now Dallas looks like they're serious. So that opening day win against Dallas looks to be like a really strong win for this team. I've got them at a 30.84 rating, 17th ranked defense in the league. So that's not good. This we anticipated to be a really, really strong defense. Now, where they are strong is against the rush. I don't even think I have to look at it, but I will. By far, yes, the number 1 team against the rush. You cannot run on Tampa. Now, throwing on Tampa has been a different story. They've been one of the worst teams in the league. As a matter of fact, they are the worst team throwing against. So what has that done for you DFS players? Suddenly, Tampa's become a team that you want to start game stacking. And we'll talk about that, of course, when I do the podcast with the Geek on Thursdays. We talk about game stacks and what we're going to do in DFS. But from a sports betting standpoint, Tampa comes in as the 4th ranked team, the defending champions. Now we go to the 3rd team, and a team I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Not that they're 3rd right now, but they surprise people that they are in this spot after 5 games of the season. That's Arizona, 5-0. Arizona gets a 33.65 power rating. I have a futures bet on Arizona to win the West. I kind of like that bet because of the quarterback. To me, you're betting quarterbacks in the NFL, especially on the futures. The good quarterbacks win. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about some of the mediocre quarterbacks that have won, but most of the mediocre quarterbacks who have won had some sort of elite defense, usually an elite defense, maybe a great pass rush, something like that. But it does happen, but it's all about the quarterback for me. The great quarterbacks make the playoffs more often than not. I think Murray has that ability, and that's why I took them as a futures bet at plus 650 to win the West as the underdog. They were the 4th team on the list. I didn't understand San Francisco's. San Francisco was actually favored at one point. The Rams clearly looked like the best team going in, but I thought Arizona was worth a shot. Now, we're a long way from getting there. They're 5-0. The Rams are only a game back, but of course, Arizona has that game in hand now. Long way to go. Now, where is Arizona really doing it? The defense. This is crazy because we didn't really expect their defense to play as well as they have. But Arizona is the 5th ranked defense right now. Where are they ranked on offense? 4th ranked offense. So that's a pretty good combination. I'll take that any day of the week. So that's what gives Arizona the 3 ranking. And I think they're going to be formidable all season long. So and that's obviously going to be a tough division. And but with Russell Wilson out now, who knows? I think it's going to be Arizona and the Rams really battling in that division down to the wire. Now, we move to 2, 34.71 Dallas. This is a team I didn't expect either to be this high, even only 5 weeks into the season. Wasn't sure about the defense. That's really been the question mark here with Dallas. But the defense, 20.9 is my defensive rating. And where does that rank them? Let's see. 20.9 gets Dallas as the 13th ranked defense. Well, when you're the number 1 offense, which they are right now, and you've got just a mediocre defense or slightly better than mediocre, you're going to be tough to deal with. Their scoring margin is 10.6 per game. They are blowing teams out. Easily could have won that game on opening night to be 5-0, but in a division that looks to be really weak. Washington, don't know what happened to that defense, but they are atrocious right now. They just played the Giants, rolled all over them, played Philly, rolled all over them. Doesn't look like any of those 3 teams are any good. So Dallas is going to have a really easy road here to the playoffs. And because of the weakness of that division and Dallas's schedule, and Dallas, by the way, has played a decent schedule so far, having played the Chargers, having played Tampa. The rest of the schedule should be fairly easy for Dallas. We could see this team potentially battling for home field advantage throughout, which would be amazing because, like I said before, with the West, those teams could be battling each other out west. We'll see what happens with Tampa and Carolina. You know, Tampa, I think, is going to be fine. We may have quite a few teams at 17 games this year. We may have quite a few teams in the NFC with really, really elite records, and one of them is going to be playing on that opening weekend. At least one of those teams are going to be playing on the opening weekend with a really good record. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now, Dallas at 2, looking extremely good, especially defensively, somewhere we did not anticipate. And of course, the number 1 team coming off that demolition of Kansas City is Buffalo. Buffalo, 34.97 rating. Here's what's got to have you excited as a Buffalo fan. They are the number 1 defense right now rated on my system, and they're number 1 by far. They're almost 2 points. They're about 1.8 points better than Carolina. That's how my defensive ratings work. So that number, 15.27, is what they should give up to an average team in the league. The next best team is Carolina at 17.09. So extremely impressive, but then you combine that with the offense. This is the 7th best offense right now, 25 rating on offense, and we know this offense could be even better. I don't know if this defense is going to maintain that number 1 spot, but they're sure off to a good start right now. What we're seeing from them, they are killing teams on passing, defensive passing against. That's where they're making their their bones. I believe they're the second best team here. If I look, they're the second best team against the pass behind Philadelphia. Now, offensively, we know it's all about Josh Allen. And let's see where they rank on the rush. They're actually 6th place in rushing. A lot of that has to do with Allen, but they're doing everything well. Believe it or not, their passing is sub-average. So their passing numbers, 20th. Now, when you say, how could they possibly be 20th? It's just based on what yardage they've been able to accumulate against teams versus the average yardage those teams gave up. That's sort of how the rankings work. So I don't think you need to be all that concerned. I think eventually Buffalo probably flips that and moves up in the offensive passing numbers. But as of right now, they've just been so efficient. They've been blowing people out by so much that they have not had to throw the ball all that much, which is attributing to the fact that their offensive passing numbers are probably lower than what they could and can be. So that's it. Like, that's our top 10. We're going to try to go over this every week, give you guys an idea of where teams are moving, what you should be looking at. My hope and goal here is that you'll maybe see some teams that are lower than you think they should be or higher than you think they should be, and just gives you a thought, and maybe you pause for a second and say, maybe I'm overrating that team or undervaluing that team when you're doing your handicapping. So I know a lot of you are going to disagree with these numbers. This is not my numbers. This is not my view to come up with these numbers. This is just strictly based off of how these teams have performed this year. But I'm sure you guys disagree with those numbers. So go ahead in the comments, rip it apart, whatever you want to do. Let us know who you think is the best team right now, who should have been in the top 10. Love to hear it. So until next week, I will talk to you guys then. Actually, I'll see a lot of you tomorrow for Survivor, Scratching and Surviving. We go over who the best picks are for Survivor pools. And of course, you guys should be watching this inside of the Sharp app. Check out the Sharp app, download it for free. There's more and more stuff coming each and every day. We're adding updates. We've now got props inside of the Sharp app, which I love. You can check out the props. If you're a DFS player, fantasy player, and you're not even a sports bettor who bets on props, you're going to want to check out the props and know where the sports books are on each and every one of these props, so that you can get an idea as to who should I be starting or sitting in my season-long league, who should I be playing in my DFS league. Hugely helpful. I love it. Check out the Sharp app, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on Scratching and Surviving.